Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to Succah the Sukkah daf test. We are going to begin at the very beginning of this Amud with the Mishnah. Sukkah Yishan. You have a Sukkah which is old, as Rashi explains that it was made before the holiday 30 days, and it wasn't explained that it was L'Shem Chag, that it was being done for the sake of Sukkahs. So in this case we have a machlokas. Beis Shammai poisel and Meisel machsheret. Beis Shammai feels, as Rashi says, the boy sukkah l'shma. The sukkah needs to be done for its sake, and therefore, if it was done within 30 days, we could assume that it was done for that purpose because we're already darshaning hilchos chag b'chag 30 days, and therefore it's understood. But before stam, we don't assume that it was done l'shem chag. However, Beis Hillel says no, you don't need to build a sukkah l'shem chag. So Be'ezi Sukkah Yeshana. So now the Mishnah explains what's an old sukkah. Kol Shiasa Kol Mechag Shloshim Yom. So he said that anything was made with before 30 days. But if you did it for the sake of the holiday, then Afil Mitchilas Hashana Kshera. Even if it was done at the beginning of the year, it doesn't mean Rosh Hashanah, because that's obviously within 30 days. It means all the way to the beginning, many months before. So long as it's done L'Shem Chag, then even Beis Shammai would hold it's okay. So, my time to Beis Shammai, why does Beis Shammai require that the sukkah must be actually made l'shem chag, for the sake of the holiday of sukkahs? So, I'm a crow. So, we first bring this pasuk. Chag sukkah shiva shalom Hashem. So, the holiday of sukkahs is for 7 days. So, sukkah asul l'shem chag b'inan. So, now from here, then it must be that the sukkah must be made for the sake of the holiday. Beis Hillel says no. I don't use that pasuk to teach us that. Rather, Huma Boyleil Rav Sheshis. Who's that? Dear Rav Sheshis, Mishim Rabbi Kiva. He said in the name of Rabbi Kiva, Menayin La'atzi Sukkah Sha'osim Kol Shiva. How do we know that the wood of the sukkah is considered to be aser? It's huksa l'mitzvasai. And Tosfos says Mashmi Yisiri B'Daraisa. It must be a drasha gemura that it's actually a din deraisa not to touch this wood. Just like a person takes upon himself the carbon chagiga, and he says that he's designated that this is for the sake of a carbon. So it says Rashi, Shalmi chagiga shem shemayim chal aleihem l'ostran ad l'achar hakatayris. A murin, you have to actually be mocked there the various sacrificial parts. Zachbuhu basar hachi meshulchan gavoya kevin anoitel pras. After you've done the avoda properly, okay, fine, you're allowed to eat from the karban chagiga, but everything has to be done properly beforehand. So kach chal shem shemayim al sukkah. So too, the name of goes on the sukkah, just like a karban. Shenemer chag sukkah shiva shomim l'Hashem. Ma'chag l'Hashem av sukkah l'Hashem. So therefore, the question is, Beis Shammai nami m'boyle l'hachi. L'chor, you need this drush as well, that one is not allowed to use the wood that was used for the schach of the sukkah all 7 days. He does learn from that pasuk, so there's no machlokas. Everyone holds chag sukkah shiva shomim l'Hashem is actually coming to tell us that the atzei sukkah, the wood of a sukkah, is aser kol shiva. So now we're back to our original question. Elamai tamai to Beis Shammai. Why does Beis Shammai say an old sukkah is problematic if it was done stam after with more than 30 days from sukkahs? So he brings another pasuk. Siv krachrina chag sukkah is tasel l'chol shiva shamim. So there's another pasuk, and it says that for 7 days. So sukkah asul l'shem chag b'inan. So that's how Beis Shammai learned it out. It has to be done and made for the sake of the holiday of Sukkot. Beis Hillel, what does Beis Hillel do with this pasuk? He holds that you're allowed to make a sukkah in chol moed. If it falls down, you're allowed to rebuild it. Beis Shammai svir lahu Rabbi Eliezer di'amar ein oisin sukkah b'chol shemoyed. So you can just sit. Fine. So that's a simple way of getting out of it. That according to Beis Shammai, he has a pasuk, and that pasuk says that one has to build a sukkah l'shem achad. Beis Hillel uses it to say you can build a sukkah in chol moed. And Beis Shammai disagrees and says, no, you can't build a sukkah on Chol Moed. It has to be for 7 days. Beis Hillel leis l'Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Must be. You're telling me that Beis Hillel doesn't hold of the Shita. Yom Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Also, when it comes to the making of tzitzis, so you're telling me that he doesn't require lishma. I'll show you. When it comes to tzitzis, maybe he should hold like it. The Sanya we learn like this. Yom Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Also in a kaitzin, umin a nimin, umin hagardnin psula. If you make the tzitzis from these different types of strings, one is the kaitzin, which is sounds like thorns, and then umin ha nimin, umin ha gardenin, from again different types of strings. So kaitzin is this second picture over here, which is over here. This is an example of kaitzin. Okay, so kaitzin, as Rashi explains, is this string, which is, you can see where it says picture bays. Okay, so that string by bays is that when a person is weaving the warp and the woof, so it's possible that some of the strings came out. The gardin is these strings on this direction, and then you have the Nieman, which is referring to strings like in this picture over here, the Gimel, and then you have Sisin, which we'll see in a second, which is like this ball of string right here. So, according to this opinion, the Kaitzin, the Nieman, and the Gardin are psula. Why? So says Rashi, they're all hanging off these various garments which I just showed you. They weren't there for the sake of tzitzis. So if you can say, you know what, I have this garment, oh wow, there's an extra string hanging off of it. Oh, so now I'll make it for tzitzis. No. Those strings, when they were woven and the warp and the woof and everything, it was made for a particular garment. And therefore now you cannot just tie it up and say, okay, now I have tzitzis. That will not work. Because the asiyah has to be done l'shma. When you actually make it, it has to be made l'shem tzitzis. And therefore, min hasisin ksher, as I showed you, this ball, which is not a beged yet, of straw, a string rather, you can use it, says Rashi. Hoyel ukshenitlu bebeged, when you do hang it tied on your garment, l'shem tzitzis nitlu. So it's still l'shma. It'll end up being that you made it l'shma. The tviyah l'shma l'b'inam, the spinning of the actual wool does not have to be l'shma. It's she'en tviyah min ha'asiyah. It's only the actual making the beged. When you're actually putting it together, those strings need to be put on l'shma. However, the tviyah, again, just spinning the wool to make strings, that much we don't require. That's why sitin are okay. According to this opinion, they say that even the sisin is psul. As Rashi says, first wide line, why is it possible? According to this pshat, even the spinning of the wool has to be done l'shma, which is a big chumrah. Fine. So what do we see? Alma to be in and tefillah l'shma. According to this last opinion, even the weaving needs to be done l'shma. So hachanami niboy sukkah su l'shma. So why don't we also say, just like the tzitzis were strict, so too why don't we say the same thing when it comes to the sukkah? When you make it, it's supposed to be done l'shma, namely l'shem chag. So the Gemara answers no. Shani hasam di'merkod gedilim tasalacha l'cha l'shem chaydcha. Specifically when it comes to tzitzis, it has this drasha that you're supposed to make it l'cha for this sake, for the tzitzis. So I hachinami chag sukkos tasalacha l'cha l'shem chaydcha. You can say the same thing as the l'cha over there. No, hahuma boile lemuti gzula. That pasuk of l'cha, that it has to be your sukkah, not a stolen one. I hasam nami boile lemuti gzula. Maybe also when it comes to the tzitzis, it can't be stolen. So hasam ksiv krachrina yasulahem mishalahem. When you say yasulahem tzitzis, they have to be yours. So Vyasulahem teaches us Kazelu. The other pasuk of Lucha by Tzitzis tells you that even Tefillah has to be Lishma. It's a machlokas, but it has to be Lishma. However, when it comes to a Sukkah, says Beis Hillel, no. All the pasuk of Lucha is coming to tell you is that it can't be a stolen Sukkah. However, if it's not done l'shem Chag, it's still kosher. Okay, let's see. Question 7. Gedilim Tasala. Chag Sukkah Tasala. Man Nilmad Miksiv L'cha B'tzitzis of a Sukkah. So as we said, by tzitzis, it has to be l'shem Choyimcha. The be'inan a siyasa l'shma, the putting on has to be l'shma, or maybe even the tefiyah has to be l'shma. But when it comes to Sukkah, the shulcha is only coming Lamuti Gazula. It's only come to exclude if someone stole it. So again, we have this machlokas Beis Shammai Hillel. They all are of the opinion that the Atzi Sukkah is Aser Kol Shiva, from the first pasuk that we brought of Chag Sukkah Shiva Shamim Hashem. The second pasuk of Chag Sukkah Tas L'cha Shiva Shamim, that's how Beis Shammai says a Sukkah Shun is possible if it was done stam beyond the 30 days. However, Beis Hillel holds no. We went up on that pasuk that you can make a sukkah on Chol Moed. Beis Shammai doesn't hold like that. And then the pasuk of L'cha of Chag Sukkah Tas L'cha. So L'cha is just telling you that it's Lamuti Gzela, not a stolen sukkah. But Tzitzis, you're right. Tzitzis, you have another pasuk that requires that it has to be, at least the Asiyah has to be Lishma, or maybe even the Tefiyah has to be Lishma. Okay. Fine. Now it's interesting, according to this Pshat, the Gemara seems to hold, if you hold it's Gzela, is what L'cha comes to tell you. L'cha, you can learn out from here that if, let's say, a mitzvah bal ba'avera, the question is deraisa and rabbanan. So according to this, look in Taisus, at the time of the mitzvah bal ba'avera, lav deraisa el rabbanan. Ayin Taisus. Let's continue now with the next daf, no, next Amud rather, Tesam and Beis, and the next Mishnah. So the third Mishnah says like this: Haisus Sukkah tachas ilam. You build a sukkah underneath a tree. Kilos of a sukkah bias. It's like you built it in your house. You can't have a sukkah in your house. You have your roof. So it's possible. Gemara is going to ask, why does it say that language? It should just say possible. Now sukkah al gabi sukkah, a sukkah on top of another sukkah, hel yonik share v'tachteinim sula. Pashit, the top one is kosher, assuming that the top one is within 20 amos, because there's only one schach. The bottom one, there's two roofs. You can only have one schach, and not two. Rabbi Yehuda every imein giron bi elyoina tachteinik shera. Interestingly enough, if there's no one living in the top one, then the bottom one is kosher. We'll have to understand this. So Rabbi lo shana el bi elon shesalas mechamasai. The only time we said this din is dafka in a scenario where the tree produces more shade than sun, and therefore you have schach, and then you have this tree which is causing problems. If it's just like one or two little branches, but it really doesn't produce much shade, so the fact that it's over your sukkah is not a problem. The Mai, how do we make such a diuk? From our Mishnah. It's like, has to be like your house. So, say more partial language, just say that the sukkah is possible inside your house. And the chiddush is the ilan dumi the bias. The only time a sukkah under a tree is possible is if it's comparable to a sukkah inside your house. Ma bias just like your roof of your house obviously produces more shade than sun. The only time it's problematic is if your sukkah is under a tree in which the tree produces more shade than sun. However, as we said, if all it does is produce a small amount of shade, it's chamas merubah salasa, so then it's still a good kosher sukkah. Gemara says 1 second. If, let's say, you're right, that if this tree produces a lot and not so much shade, it's a lot of sun, very little shade, so why would you say it's kosher? So if there's only more shade than sun, if there's only more shade than sun, when you combine it with the shade of the trees, but if you can still be, it could still be kosher if you are okay. As we're going to see, Amalei Papa b'shechavata. What you did was, it's not enough to have chamasim masalasa. That's not enough. You have to actually bend the branches down so that it is going into the schach. Says Rashi, "Ve'im near and ve'ein." If you look up, you don't see what part is the actual schach, which is detached, tolish, what is from the branches of a tree, which is mechuber l'karka. Continuing in Rashi, the schach kosher rabba alav u'mavatel the midaraisa kol mili batel beruba. We know there's a din of batel berai. Kidanam masnisin im hayasicha beruba mehen kshera. So we know it's rov is enough. So therefore, if there is just a little bit of branches, you're right. If it's up top, it's a problem. If it's mixed in kishachavatan, then it's okay. Fine. And where it says, 1 second, Ibish chavatan, mile member, what's the chiddush? You don't even see it. So what? It's all mixed in. It's only a couple little branches. So the Gemara says, Ma'udatema nigzer heichad chavatan, not the heichad lo chavatan. Kamashon de gazrina. If you don't put the branches down and mix it all in, then it's definitely it's a problem. However, because it's allowed, if it's chavatan, you would maybe think, maybe that shouldn't be allowed because you may not put it down. Okay. So again, if there's more shade than sun by the trees, when you combine it with the shade of the tree, that's a problem. But if it can still be kosher if you are b'shchavata. You lower the branch to mix it in. Which is mashma, if there's a lot of schach, according to this pshat, is that there's really not a lot of schach kosher. There's a lot of schach kosher, you don't need to bring down these branches since it's more shade by itself. Therefore, these few branches can stay as is. So again, this is how we understand the Gemara. The only time we say that it's necessary to put it down is when you don't have samasim or b'chamasa. Your schach is very thin schach. So when you put it down, it's mixed in, so schach kosher with schach pasul, it's not nira, so therefore it's acceptable. However, if let's say you have a few branches up top, but you have very thick schach, then you don't need to do shchavatan. That's pashut pshat. So hanami tanin, we learn this also in the Mishnah later on Daf Yudal. Hidul et gefen said the last of kisus. If a person raised vines which are attached to the ground, grapevines and gourd vines and ivy vines, he puts schach on his puzzle. However, let's say that you have more schach, again, even if it's not kishachavatan, she cut the sun share. Or you cut it off, so now obviously it's all tolish, shera. Now, if we're talking about you didn't mix it in, how come it starts schach kosher? Again, if let's say you have thin schach, and now you're using these branches, and they're above it, so how does that work? It's not mixed in. It needs to be mixed. We see that we're not geyser, so we already have that Mishnah. So again, let's just conclude this thought. A sukkah, according to different interpretations of this Gemara, but according to the pashut pshat, is that if you have a sukkah underneath a tree, the only time it's an issue is, as we said, if there's more, the branches are very, very thick. If the branches are, then it's definitely possible, because it's like it's in your house. However, if there's more sun than shade, those tree branches don't give off a lot of shade, so it's more sun than shade. But you're a very thin schach, then you need to kishchavat, and you need to combine it, and that's okay. However, if they're separated, then you're being the star schach kosher schach pasul in a way that is recognizable as a problem. However, if you have a couple of branches, however your schach is very, very thick, so then you do not need to do kishchavat. Okay. Sukkah al gavi sukkah. So now let's see his next piece. You have a sukkah on the top of another sukkah. So Tanabah, the sukkah is teishu. Lo b'sukkah shtakas a sukkah, lo b'sukkah shtakas a il, lo b'sukkah shtakas chabayis. Only one schach. You can't have double layers. Adarabah, the sukkah is tarti mashma. The sukkah, he says mashma, you should have two. based on the language. So Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak b'Sukkah ksiv. This is Yeshem Mikra, Yeshem Cyrus. Fine, as we saw in Daf Vav. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Pamim sheshtem ksheres, Pamim sheshtem psulas, Pamim shetachtoin ksher ve'el yonim psula, Pamim shetachtoin psula ve'el yonim ksher. When you have a sukkah on top of a sukkah, it's possible that both of them are kosher. Sometimes both of them are possible. Sometimes the top is kosher, the bottom is possible, and sometimes vice versa. So let's go through all four situations. Pamim sheshtem ksheres hekedami. How could both of them be kosher? Kigoyin shetachtoina chamasrim musalasa. The bottom has more sun than shade, so the schach itself is very thin. It's really not. It's like almost like nothing there. Vel yonis losem b'chamasa. You're relying on the top sukkah, really, the top schach, which is more shade than sun. So you could somehow be on either level. I don't know how you could be on that other level, but let's imagine you somehow could stand on a frame or something. So the point is that you're relying on that top schach, and therefore it works either way. Obviously the top one has to be within 20 amos, as we saw in our Mishnah Daf Beis. How could both of them be possible? Both of them are more shade than sun. So the bottom one is possible because you have two schachs. What's wrong with the top one? And the top sukkah is huge, very, very high, more than 20 amos. So the problem isn't the schach, the problem is the height. Okay. Sometimes the bottom one is kosher, the top one is possible. How is that possible? As we continue Dav Yud, Hechidami, so the reason why the bottom one is kosher is because it's a good sukkah, it has more shade than sun. And the top one has very, very little branches. It's more sun than shade, so it's almost like it's nothing. So to sit underneath that sukkah, that doesn't count. But at the bottom level, it does count. And we're talking about where both of them are within 20 amos. And let's actually look at question 8 over here before we continue. Question 8. Sukkah gabi sukkah. Tachtaina salasim b'chamasa. Machmas sirif el yoina, because it's mixed in. Del yoina chamasim b'salasa madina shal tachtaina. So he said, if the top one is above 20 amos, it's possible. If the top one is within 20 amos, it's kosher, as we just explained. That was question 8. Fine. Weiter. Last case scenario. How is the top one kosher and the bottom was possible? This one's kosher. So both of them have more shade than sun, so you can't sit in the bottom one because there's two schachs. However, but the top one is within 20 amos, so the top one is not a schach problem because it has more shade than sun. It's not a height problem because it's less than 20 amos. So pshita, all these cases are pretty obvious. No. The situation we say the bottom one is kosher because it has more shade than sun, and the top one is possible because it has more sun than shade, that's the chiddush. You would think that what you're doing is you're being mistarif. The schach kosher and the schach possible together, and therefore it should be possible. Kamash Mulan. So again, this is how we can understand it. You're not kishachavatan in this case. So why does it work? Because the bottom one has a lot of schach. So if it has a lot of schach, you don't need to mix it in. The only problem of mixing it in is only when you need that schach to be able to make the bottom one also schach kosher. However, if you already have salasim and muchamasa on the bottom, it's definitely not required. Okay, we're going to stop there. And let's see a couple questions. TA 19. So you made a sukkah underneath a tree. Testament base. The Eza Ilan Irie. What type of tree are we talking about? There's Oifin Mavur B'Gemara, the kosher af shaloi shekatzatz. Even if it's not cut off, how does it work? So he said, if the tree produces more shade than sun, that's just like a house, and that's why it's possible. However, if it's V'im chamasa imaruba, there's more sun, the chavatan, and you mix it in, then in that situation it will be kosher. TB 20. Mahu asisin. What are the sisin? And we saw this picture right here of the ball of string is the sisin. So ma stadim is that, so you know it's a machlokas, ma stadim is that. So the sisin is this like string of wool. It's a machlokas if you could actually make tzitzis with them. If the question is, do you also need the tefiyah, the weaving to be lishma, or just the actual asiyah to be lishma? If you hold the tefiyah needs to be lishma, then the sisin are also possible. However, all you require is the seal lishma, but not the tefiyah, then the tzitzin are kosher. Ad kan.